Salutations, utopians. Hope everyone's week went well. For those of you, this is your Monday. Stay grinding. Don't get discouraged. At least you got something to do. Now, tonight we had some major games on the docket. Last of the play-in: Bulls vs Heat, Kings, Pelicans. Um, Obviously the Heat without Jimmy Butler, like their hashtag says on Twitter X, Heat culture, grind, physical, lead with the defense, epitomize what the 90s ball represented from Pat Riley's era. Portland State alum Eric Spoelstra showing once again why he is what he is and why he's been in the same tenured place for so long, when most of these coaches are like microwaves. Now, I mentioned, collegiate level. Obviously, Billy Donovan's a legend, but the turmoil that Bulls roster has been subjected to. I mean, no Lonzo, no Zach LaVine, constant roster overhaul. Domo, number 12, man. My oh my. I'm glad I did not put no list on Twitter X about guys who I thought were going to show up in the playoffs and make a name for themselves, which is my favorite part of NBA playoffs, is the no-name guys who become overnight celebrities. Some have changed their whole financial trajectory off of a couple games in the playoffs. Never forget Jerome James, formerly of the Seattle Supersonics, back when they had Rashard Lewis, speaking of Heat culture, and Ray Allen. Jerome James had one playoff series and went to the Knicks and got $40 million back in the day when Scott Layden was the GM. Which was unheard of back then. Kidding me? $40 million in mid-90s, early 2000s for one series because the Knicks were so desperate for some size, and that man never did a damn thing. When I tell you the Knicks were AARP back in the day, signing Twilight Penny, Glenn Rice, that's a conversation for another day. But the Bulls are so much under turmoil, and it's like if they could just ever get that roster together. And what I'm afraid of is I don't normally see teams like that who are older and have played a lot of basketball start beginning their dynasty run. It normally looks like what you see with like OKC, the Denver Nuggets, mid-20s. There's plenty room to have years to run. With the Bulls, it's like you guys got DeRozan 34, Zach LaVine coming off couple surgeries, Lonzo couple surgeries. Vucevic has definitely been, one thing I'll say, he's always been a 20 and 10, but now you see him shooting that three ball, my goodness. But the Bulls are going to have to let DeRozan be free. And he signed an $85 million contract this year. I mean, his last contract. It's going to be interesting now because these contracts are going to crunch, as I keep on alluding to in all my videos. What does he do next? I see him moving to the West Coast, getting into the warm weather climate. I know he admires his teammates for, them sticking together and no one giving up, but he needs to be playing some meaningful basketball, and I just don't see it happening in Chicago. Banking on another year, counting on Lonzo to stay healthy, because that's exactly ultimately what they need. Kobe White, man, salute to you. You took completely your game to another level. Kobe White really had everyone scratching their head on who's going to get most improved. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey seems like the front runner, even though they did not have a good record in the absence of Joel Embiid, but that's another discussion. Now, for the real stunner of the night, the headliner, the final act, the Pelicans, who were without Zion, who I deemed to be the future of the NBA, and it's going to still be out for another 2 weeks. Let me tell you something. At the trade deadline, I was demanding that the Knicks go after Herb Jones. It's on the record. GL8BAL_sports on Twitter X. I asked for Herb Jones back when all the fans were, oh man, just be glad that we're finally winning. No, we don't do mediocre. Get us a two-way guard, two-way wing. Because the way Jimmy Butler was taking them on the low block and they were too undersized, they go and get OG Anunoby. But good to see the Knicks get themselves together. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, these are studs talking about guys who were going to make a name for themselves and become household names in a role player capacity, like Derek Fisher, like so many others who you know you have to have on your team. That Shane Battier, James Posey, that's what those guys are. And what's going to be funny is them going against OKC. I got them beating OKC also. Let me bookmark that now. I'm going to make a video tomorrow morning. But just know, I got Pelicans beating OKC also. I'm willing to go on that hill. Okay? So, Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram's pull-up jumper, my goodness. That thing, I thought I'd never see anyone have a more beautiful stroke like Melo's from the mid-range. Then you got Kobe. But them two guys were, the mechanics on their mid-range was amazing. Brandon Ingram has the most fluid mechanic I've ever seen for that range. And for anyone who ever thought the mid-range wasn't powerful, that metrics, guess what? You got the clinic. This is a guy who's due for his run finally. And especially if the Lakers and the Clippers better turn off the radio once they get eliminated in the first round, because all they're going to hear about is SGA and Brandon Ingram. We're going to hear people reflecting on, was Anthony Davis worth it? Is Paul George worth it? That's why the Clippers don't want to go past, the 3 years that they're willing to do with Kawhi, because by that point, SGA is going to be in his max form, and he's going to get that $400 million contract, and nobody wants to be reminded. If Paul George is washed or in the twilight of his career on another team, it's fine. But when you got SGA maxing out like that with Paul George behaving the way, and then where Paul George will be at his career, he's already 35. It's going to get ugly. As far as the Kings, to be honest with you, I had them falling out of the playoffs way earlier. Kudos to them for holding on, losing Monk, losing Herter. It just was too much. It was compounding. But they got themselves a nice piece in Keon Ellis. That's the one thing about adversity and losing players. You really learn about your depth chart. And they really got them a stud, because a guy who can go out and get you 20 and go lock up on defense and make plays. He had a game against Shea Gilgeous where he had 2 blocks and 2 steals as a guard. Looks about 6'5". Imagine him with a full training camp, a full season, more assurance that he's going to be guaranteed a role. What do you think he can accomplish? It was very impressive tonight, no matter what happened. The Kings have nothing to hang their hat on. They definitely, their demise was not having a third scorer. No knock on Harrison Barnes, but Harrison is a complementary piece in its fullest sense. And he's definitely a consummate professional. He's done so much for the game. He's played in so many big games. I think he's even an Olympian. But you need a guy to go out there on an island and get a bucket, and that's not him for the Kings. Keegan Murray looked pretty good. This was a great season for him. He needs to, like Charles and Chuck said, he needs to adapt at how to be a scorer even when he's in a room full of wolves. It's okay when he always does this when somebody gets injured. No Monk, no Computer. They're looking for buckets, so he has no pressure. But when you get him in that where he's got to coexist with guys who can go get theirs and are not afraid of the moment, he has the natural take a backseat. And I understand with youth, and as he gets older, he'll have more sense of belonging. But that's the next chapter. It's a psychological thing. But the Kings have nothing to be ashamed of. This was a successful year, considering they got snubbed at the All-Star. Neither DeMontis or Fox were selected. And, Fox is, kudos to him to getting his career back on track, because before Ja, he was the Ja before Ja. So, congrats to him. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the Pelicans are too much. Herb Jones and Murphy, that right there, Alvarado is magical, man. That guy gets in the game and he can just change the whole energy and the momentum altogether. The Pelicans are dangerous. I don't know. They're a wild card. I told everyone, I don't know how this script is. I don't know how this is going to end for them, because if Zion comes back healthy, they're not lacking anything. You want to get big and physical, you got Jonas V to absorb that. You want to get the ISO bucket game where we play low scoring defense possession game. Guess what? You can just give Zion the ball and he can bring the game home like he did at Duke. He's the Malone. He's the Barclays. Get used to it. He can possibly reach that Duncan LeBron echelon. And he's got the supporting cast. Every team has to have a Murphy. It's the James Posey, Shane Battier. All right, Utopians, I'll try to do better next time. This was such a great second game and made up for everything. Kudos to all the teams involved. Can't wait. Playoffs tomorrow. So it begins. Global. Out.